The Guardian, Book 1, by Francisco Camaño. The trip was long, even in faster-than-light travel. So when John heard the pilot saying that they would arrive to Ithar Prime, the home world of the Itharian race, in just another 45 minutes, John felt good. Not because he was particularly looking forward to this assignment. It was just another charge, another royal pain in the ass he would have to protect, probably entitled and unaware of how the universe works and what it takes to keep it working. But because he hated space travel. And while he patiently waited to arrive, he turned on his digital notepad, a very convenient device built into what looked like an earthly wristwatch. The thing projected a holographic image coded with his brain implant, specially designed to only allow his decryption codes to decode the messages he received via that device, standard issue for the U.S. Space Marine Corps. Now, part of the Galactic Empire Alliance that included over 400 different planets and so many alien species. John had decided long ago that it was not worth his time to memorize unless he had to work directly with them. A set of rules and protocols came up, but before he engaged on his reading, he activated an extra set of security, also standard procedure, especially with such a high-ticket charge as this one was. It said, Itharian protocols, extremely important to follow. John clenched his jaw as he started to read. These would definitely make his work harder. 1. The High Council is to be respected at all times. 2. Never address the king or the queen unless directly asked. 3. Always refer to the king and the queen as your highness, your royal highness. 4. Your life is spendable to protect your charge. The princess is the only one that matters. 5. You cannot touch the princess, under pain of death. John was somewhat accustomed to these things. In fact, he smiled a bit thinking that there have been other charges with very strange requirements, like have him walk exactly 4 steps behind the charge, and other things that don't need to be mentioned right now. But that is the nature of his work. John belonged to a higher division of the U.S. Space Marine Corps, one that only accepted the most elite members of the Corps, men and women with years of battle experience, tested on a level that would break the souls of anyone, alien races included, and John was particularly good at what he did. His mind worked like an analytical computer, cold, calculating, factual, but also with the ability to adapt and improvise if necessary. His battle experience was unquestioned and unchallenged, a war veteran of at least 15 known conflicts and around 20 covert operations, his body bearing witness of these battles. His eyes denoted the look of a warrior who has been in hell and back. He looked like controlled destruction, something you shouldn't test. He turned off the device as the comm system buzzed to life, receiving a signal from the Outworld Control Tower on the planet, now on the view screen. Earth vessel, USSMC, 2407 Storm class. Prepare to transmit manifesto and any cargo, said a voice on the tower. In a foreign language belonging to the Itharians, it was melodic in males, soft to the ears, but clear and clinical. John thought about how would an Itharian woman's voice sound like, since he has never heard one before. Control tower, diplomat protocol engaging. Data transmission will commence in 10 seconds. Said the pilot. A pause. Transmission received. Welcome to Ithar. Ambassador Forrester, please proceed. Shields will disengage immediately, the tower replied, and the pilot looked at John. You don't look like a diplomat, he said, without looking at John, and while he typed commands into a control panel. No, and who do I look like? John asked, aware that using the code diplomat with him was not the best cover story. The pilot gave him a long look via the monitoring systems on the ship, then responded, After all my years in service, you look like I made a mistake by making that comment, sir, and immediately forgot about his curiosity. It takes one to know one, pilot. Have a safe trip back home, and please, the first beer you get, let it be in my name, John replied, appreciating the pilot's discretion but not wanting to be a total asshole. Yes, sir. You can count on it, the pilot said and smiled. Semper Fi, he said on his way down. A royal committee was waiting for John when he arrived, and he would never stop getting impressed by the Etherians. There are many beautiful races in the galaxy, but this race gave all of them a run for their money. It was a party of three, two gorgeous, athletic-looking females and one very handsome male. Standing there, the male sporting the fakest smile John had ever seen. The females, on the other hand, looked at him with curiosity. After all, John is a very handsome man by Earth standards, but the male was looking at him as if he was something weird. "Greetings, Ambassador John Forrester," the male said, with a forced courtesy that could be cut with a knife and consumed with ice cream. "John, please," he said, knowing this would make him uncomfortable and forcing smiles out of the two females. The Etherians were all about etiquette and protocol, but John was not here to make friends, so if he could give anyone a hard time, without being too aggressive, he would do it after all. He did say he was not the right person for this job. John would rather be fighting hand-to-hand with Malokian battle dogs. Facing two heads full of teeth looked a lot more enticing than this facade. As expected, the male became uncomfortable. Etherians are, for lacking of a better word, a very proud race, a beautiful race, males and females alike. They are perfect, and not by enhancements or technology. They are born like that. Males are all 6 feet 3 inches tall, with long black hair for sets of horns in their heads, 2 in the back, 2 in the front, long pointy ears and yellow eyes. Their skin is crimson red, deep, vibrant, and their lips are a little darker, especially women's. In the other hand, women are 6 feet of perfection from head to toe. Nature made an effort with them to make sure everything that needs to be included was, and then some. They could have either white hair, black hair, or red hair. These two walking in front of him had red and black hair, and their bodies, they looked like supermodels, beautiful curves hidden under their clothing, tight to their bodies, enough to tease one's imagination, but not so much to be too exposing John's mind. Challenged with every step they took, women had no horns in their heads, and John remembered that the horns on males represented age and wisdom. As they aged, their horns changed colors, from a very dark black color for the young ones, to lighter tones of brown, up until they turned white, representing wisdom and experience. Their lifespan was around 200 years. "Of course," he said, and he murmured something in the Etherian language to the two women. "These brutes and their crude culture, if it was in my power, I would have him cleaning the floors of the dungeons." John smiled and replied, in their own language, "Brute has served me well in places where your enemy only speaks one language, unrelenting violence. As for the cleaning, work can only dignify the man that does it, and create comforts for those who believe that work is beneath them." The Etherian man's yellow eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he heard John reply in perfect Etherian, without the melody only their vocal cords could produce, of course, while the two women burst into a short and mostly suppressed laugh that was restrained half a second after it burst out, replaced by what seemed to be surprise and admiration from their part. "I am sorry, sir. I didn't know you could speak our language," the man said, but only because he thought he would get in trouble for disrespecting their new guest, not because he felt any regret for saying what he said. "That's okay, Bob." John pet named the tight-ass alien. "Just keep thinking I am a brute. What you meant as an insult, I see as matter of fact, and don't worry, I won't tell if you don't," John replied, not in anger, but just as cold. "Again, my apologies," he replied with gratitude on his voice. The Etherians are a proud race, as said, and because of their looks and their advanced technologies, they see themselves as a better, higher race than the rest, including others who are in fact their equals. So, John expected the dismissive or derogatory comments ever since he was notified about this assignment. He also didn't realize how much he wouldn't care about whatever they wanted to think about him, which was important if he was going to complete his task. One charge, one responsibility above everything else, including his own life. Only one person mattered. He remembered his commanding officer briefing him. The women, on the other hand, kept glancing back at him, soft smiles on their faces. They seemed to be entertained by the brute. He winked at one of them, and she quickly turned her head back, covering yet another laugh with her hand. "This is a very dangerous place," he said to himself, rubbing his face with his hands. They continued to walk towards a transport. The Etherian man gestured him to climb in, but John declined and made him get in first, since that guy started the pissing contest. John was determined to not give him 1 inch. A warrior's mind, even with trivial stuff. Then he gently gestured the 2 women to get in, and once he climbed in, he sat between both of them. The transport was big, and John noticed how none of them could ever made physical contact with one another unless they purposefully tried to do so. He noticed both the women wore an identical bracelet on their right wrists. It was beautiful, with symbols he didn't understand even though he speaks and reads their language. "Excuse me, what does that bracelet represent?" he asked, trying to make casual conversation, and both of the women's faces changed color a bit with what might be them blushing. Again, they covered their faces with what to him sounded like the sweetest laughter he will ever hear. Then he said, "I will make you laugh as much as I can if it means I will get to listen to it," and they both laughed again. "Be careful, Outworlder," one warned, but in a playful manner. "These are unbonded bracelets, Ambassador," the other one responded, polite and smiling at his curiosity. "Can you understand the meaning?" she asked, testing his deductive capabilities. "I think so. It means you are single," he responded, and they both smiled. "In a sense, yes, Onathar. Women don't wear what you call wedding rings in your world to let people know they have bonded with a partner. We wear these instead to show we have not yet," she explained, and he appreciated it. "Be careful," he repeated, looking at the incredibly beautiful Etherian woman sitting to his right. She nodded, with a side smile that could stop a man's heart. "Thank you for the warning, and I apologize if I offended either of you," he said. "It seems Bob was right when he called me a brute," and the male alien would have wanted to jump out of the transport while the 2 females now exploded with laughter. "Yes, be careful," she repeated, again, with that smile, and John stopped joking. No need to create an intergalactic incident by sending the wrong signals to these 2 very nice and very beautiful ladies. She leaned in a little closer to him, making sure, again, they didn't make contact, and whispered, "Only play if you mean it, Ambassador." Shit, this was serious. "No offense, Ambassador," she finally said, sitting up straight again, understanding the cultural misunderstanding, but incredibly amused and interested at the same time, or so it would seem. John was wearing the regular U.S. Space Marine Corps uniform, no armor, a formal dress suit, with some medals and accolades strategically placed in his suit to complete the disguise, and not even close to all the medals and commendations he has earned throughout his years of service, not to mention the ones he was only shown, but could not physically have. It was a carefully designed and studied outfit to show his rank of commander, but also hide his capacity and capabilities as an elite Marine, deadly in every circumstance, determined to complete his mission, whatever the cost. This was a covert operation. The uniformed hid a scarred body, detailing tales of near deaths and heroics hidden within almost every inch of his fit and defined body. John was a 6'4" force to be reckoned with, fact that many enemies would regret not acknowledging, were they still alive to choose differently. And here he was, the home world of the Crimson Race, as everyone on Earth called them, a privilege to some, because they are not too fond of having other Outworlders in their home planet, especially not from Earth, considered to be one of the most primitive worlds accepted by the Union as part of their ranks. John, on the other hand, didn't give 2 shits about this world. He cared only about his charge and his duty. Regardless of the fact that the Etherians controlled 20 galaxies, their kingdom extending over countless planets. Their king, however, was a just king, and he didn't rule his people and his subjects with an iron fist. He made sure everyone under the Etherian protectorate was well taken care of, and John appreciated that part. One of the reasons why he accepted this task, because it would represent the passing down of that torch and the assurance the next in line, this time, the princess, would be allowed to rule under her father's guidance, keeping the peace in the galaxies they controlled. The transport looked way too adorned to be efficient, but it moved swiftly through the busy streets, white, gold and red-colored. The material it was made from was hard to guess. It was not metal, but it was harder than any metal produced on Earth. John debated between looking at the two Etherian women or at the magnificent infrastructure of this planet. Every single building was white, adorned with very elaborate carvings in silver, gold, reds, blacks, signs, carved into the structures letting people know what service of purpose said edification had. Their writing was just as exquisite as listening to them speak was. And while John was focused on his surroundings, between thinking what would he need to do if they get attacked, and if he could sneak out later to visit this or that other place to try one of the universally famous Etherian dishes, he spotted one of the women who flanked him, looking side-eyed at him. His experience told him she wanted to ask him something, and he figured what it was. "You can ask. I get that question a lot. It is, after all, kind of hard to miss," he said, sure of himself, and she was astonished because he was right. The woman said, in that beautiful voice, "Ambassador Forrester," she started. Her voice, as he suspected, demanded attention. It was a song disguised as a conversation. "Please call me John. I have not earned that level of respect from you yet," he said, while facing the male in front of him, who by now knew he was going to be the butt of every sharp word John could come up with. The woman smiled and started again. "John," and his name coming from her mouth, with that accent made him think such a simple name was designed to be pronounced by that species. "The scar on your face, did it hurt?" she asked, and it was obvious it would have hurt, but what she wanted to know is how he got it and found the most polite, albeit not the best way to ask. John was a gentleman. "Yes, but not as much as you think. Adrenaline helps in stressful situations," he said, not wanting to share details on how he got it. She seemed to be content with his answer. John bared many markings of his experiences as an elite warrior, but most of them could be hidden under his clothing, but not the scar that ran from part of his forehead, cutting through his brow, jumping down to his right cheek, almost halfway, already healed, but leaving a darkened skin that reminded him of days he would have wanted to forget if he could. The lady alien smiled and bowed her head a little, appreciative of his answer, but obviously wanting more details. It was not long until they reached the impressive royal palace. Hard to describe alien architecture in plain English, but suffice to say it was big, magnificent, something that looked like a mixture of white stone with crystals that reflected the light. Colors seemed to move around the structures. Huge entrances designated for several purposes, towers, 4 of them, and one main building, designated for the royalty on top and everyone else on the bottom. He later learned that he was assigned quarters in the top parts of the palace, where the royalty lived, specifically near the princess's quarters. They got out of the transport and started on their way towards his quarters. He had to get ready for the reception that was going to start in about 30 minutes, so they moved with haste. John didn't pay much attention to the other Etherians and different species of aliens there, looking at him, yet again, as an odd thing in place where it didn't belong. They reached the entrance of his quarters. The male explained where he needed to go, but also left him with what looked like a data pad that had the castle's blueprints, directions written in their language. He said thanks, then the male Etherian, still embarrassed, left with quick steps, followed by the 2 women. One of them turned to look at John, that beautiful smile, those eyes, then the other one. He waved them both goodbye, and the both turned their faces, laughing again. He didn't care if they found him amusing or ridiculous. Creatures like this are way out of his league anyways, he thought to himself, but no one in the entire galaxy would have stopped him for enjoying how his behavior either annoyed or amused them. Plus, the view as they walked away. "You should get ready," one of the women said before they were out of view. "They will come for you soon," and continued to walk following the others. John got ready. He changed his formal marine attires for something more ceremonial but equally practical for combat. It was another suit, with just the Earth insignia and his rank, commander, and waited comfortably until he was summoned. Not long passed before he heard a chime from his door. When he opened it, 2 royal guards with beautifully designed golden armor that looked as beautiful as it looked effective, carrying Etherian battle rifles, extremely effective in battle, and ceremonial swords, were standing outside his door. And all he could think about was how badly he would have wanted to be able to test one of those rifles on a shooting range. "Commander," one of them said, the first one of them who addressed him by his rank, obviously military decorum and training, "please follow us. We will escort you to the ballroom." John thanked them and followed. They walked through a corridor flanked by the same color of white crystalline-looking walls and over what appeared to be black marble, but extremely polished, their steps echoing throughout the corridor, continuing until they reached the ballroom. The main door looked as if it was made for giants to enter, way too big to be practical, way too small to do justice to the rest of the place, and once inside, John was left alone, to fend for himself, just like he liked it. He looked around, trying to find a good spot, a place from where he could be close enough to the throne, but with a good enough vantage point he could look at the people, and he switched from tourist mode to predator the moment he started to assess this place. John lifted his right hand close to his mouth and spoke in a hushed tone. "I am in position," letting command know he was already there. A voice came in his ear, from a very small receiver injected from underneath his right ear. "Do us proud." "Marine," he smiled. "No guarantees I won't start a diplomatic nightmare," he joked, and ended transmission. John walked around and settled near one of the marble-looking columns, near one of the many food and drink tables, trying to figure out how the hell was he going to blend in a place where the vast majority of people have crimson-red skin and the rest more than 2 arms, and while he played with those thoughts, the announcement was made. "Please bow to your royal rulers, King Aaron and Queen Yara from Athar Prime." Everybody bowed their heads after the announcement was made, but lifted them up back again, to be able to see their royal family enter the ballroom. The place roared with thunderous applauses as royalty came into scene. The king, with his 4 white horns, depicting his wisdom and experience, closely followed by his queen, with long white hair, making a beautiful contrast with her red skin. She seemed to glide over the marble-like tiles, absolutely gorgeous, absolutely royal, but none of them were the ones John was interested in. And he didn't have to wait long, because right behind them, the princess and her entourage came in, and John's heart made a weird movement inside his chest. The Princess Ilarya, glided in, her eyes, gray, haunting, making a perfect match with her silver hair, carefully braided to rest on her back. She was wearing a white royal dress, way too tight to her body to be legal, or at least to be classified as torture for him, no sleeves and very revealing. Then again, all women in this planet dressed up in a very sensual fashion, making John understand why so many real ambassadors from Earth wanted this assignment. He focused once more on the Princess Ilarya, her name leaving a sweet taste in his mouth after he said it, and after his brain finally placed a face beside it. The princess continued her gracious walk, saluting and smiling the people present. Her smile was genuine, not because she enjoyed the attention, but to him, and based on his experience, looked as if she really meant it, that she really cared about the people she was smiling to. John couldn't keep his eyes away from her. Wish was both a good thing and a bad thing. Yes, he needs to keep her in his sights, but he also needs to look for danger. After all, he was sent here to protect her from something that was not even specified, but for now, his eyes were locked on her beautiful face, her white hair adorned by a little tiara to remind us all who she was. He also spotted that she was wearing that wristband he saw earlier today. The princess is not to be touched, he reminded himself, and had he been alone, he would have slapped his face twice. Today, I am going to die, he said to himself, and thought it would be a good death. The princess sat down on a chair placed one step below her parents, her mother smiling at her as she took her place, and after this short ceremony, the king stood up and said, "Thank you all for coming, please, enjoy yourselves." The ballroom came to life with Etherian music that seemed to be surreal. John had to start moving to focus. It was nothing short than beautiful, people chatting here and there and everyone having a good time, but John was already working. He had specially requested the king to not announce his arrival, to not acknowledge him on the first night. John needed to assess the royal invitees and everyone else, And that is exactly what he was doing. And while he studied everyone with an experience only possible after years of hardcore training and experience, he moved amongst them as if he was a ghost, looking at every face, every glance that dared to move towards the princess's way, every comment made. Some he could understand. Others he relied on his translator, his trained eye moving from place to place with surgical, military precision. There is a plot to kill the princess, John, and we have been chosen. No, you have been chosen by King Aaron himself to protect his daughter and heir to his empire, his commander told him. This would cement Earth's position in the Etherian Galactic Empire Alliance, or destroy every opportunity Earth had. But why me? He asked his superior officer. Because the king has been searching for a protector for his daughter for years, and he came across some security footage from you, his commander said. Aren't these supposed to be, I don't know, classified, sir? John asked, not very happy to have his missions be a part of some kind of job application he most definitely was not applying for. King Aaron is the most powerful king in the known galaxies, John, and when we got a royal communicate coming from him and asking specifically about you, a security breach was the last thing in our minds, he responded, leaning back on his chair with a smile on his face. I am glad you are enjoying yourself, sir, John said, annoyed. Think of it as retribution, John, for all the white hair you helped grow in my head with all your near deaths and shit you have done, his commander said, his voice full of respect and appreciation to a person that for him was not just a subordinate, but a close friend. But, Michael, are you sure I am the right person for this? John asked, with a genuine concern and breaking rank respect, as they are more than used to do in private, even while having an official conversations, as this one was. I cannot think of anyone better. My brother, Michael replied to John. Well, remember, this is your fault if I screw this up, John said, smiling. If you screw this up, we will both be living under the same bridge, Commander, but I warn you, I am not doing the cooking, he joked. John's mind came back to the party, focusing once more on the attendees, and at that moment, his eyes focused on the princess. She was standing up, her personal guard moved quickly to flank her, but she gestured them back, not allowing them to do their jobs. This was stupid, reckless. He started by trying to spot which species was hostile, or could be hostile, and which of these were closer to her. Then he spotted movement. An 8-foot-tall reptilian dignitary started on his way towards the princess, his stride faster than anyone casually walking in a place like this, his gaze focused on the princess's direction. John started on his way, too. Princess Ilarya was casually talking to a group of people, oblivious of what might be transpiring, or maybe too trustful of the guards whom she dismissed. It wouldn't have happened with him. He wouldn't have stayed behind. But these guards have to obey. Fuck, he is getting closer, John thought, and stepped up the pace. John pushed a few guests, gently but determinedly, trying to close the gap between him and the alien lizard mountain, who was just about 10 feet away from her. The princess then turned her back to the reptilian, who speeded up his pace the moment he noticed it, and that triggered something in John's training. This was going to go down now. He started to run. No more gentle get-out-of-my-way pushes, but full power get-the-fuck-out-of-my-way shoves. The lizard guy was too focused on his target, and between the music and the chatter, he didn't ever hear the people John was shoving away complaining. John felt he was running out of time. The reptilian shoved his left hand inside his tunics and pulled out a 24-inch blade, made out of what appeared to be burning crystal. John recognized the blade. In fact, he bared marks for such weapons from previous campaigns. The material used to make these weapons would vibrate at a very low but rapid sequence, making it so sharp that you could cut a hair falling in midair. Deadly. And the would-be assassin was at striking distance. Princess Ilarya. The creature screamed. She turned, confused. Then her eyes reflected something that broke John's heart and pissed the hell out of him. Too, it was fear. The dark hand sends its regards, and he started to move the blade downwards in what was going to be a devastating blow. All the princess could do was to lift her arms and try to cover her face. It wouldn't matter. If that monster hits her with that thing, she is done for. The princess kept her posture, waiting for the pain coming her way. John looked upon her face while he moved, and he felt as a surge of what only can be described as white-hot rage erupted inside of him, fueling his muscles, his senses, his awareness. And suddenly, he felt he would expose something to these people that was meant to be kept secret, hidden to all, even to the king himself. She is the only one that matters. He repeated to himself. The pain she was expecting never reached her. A thundering roar came out of that thing's snout, making every single one of them turn their heads to see what the hell was going on. And when they saw, everyone present gasped in at least 20 different ways depending on species and voice pitch, then silence. And when the princess opened her eyes, confused as of why she was not screaming out of pain or dead, she saw him. She saw John, standing right in front of her. Both arms holding the reptilian's bladed hand stopped in midair, and inches away from his face. John, on his way to her, had removed his jacket, looking for mobility, and his white shirt reflected his very well-built body, his muscles tensed under the pressure applied by the reptilian, whose eyes couldn't believe a simple human was able to stop his attack. They struggled like this for a few seconds, then, with a swift move, the reptilian slammed his massive tail against John's legs, making him flip in midair and land on the floor, face first. John managed to use his hands to stop the fall in what seemed to be practiced controlled efficiency, or a flat-out defiance of the laws of gravity, as physical constitution from a cat was mixed with this soldier's blood, or something else, something more. In a split second, John was on his feet again. He glanced back quickly, and the princess was still there, unable to move, paralyzed with something other than fear. Two of the royal guards, the ones who were closer, sprinted into action and attacked the would-be assassin. The reptilian turned to face them, stabbing the first one in the chest with incredible ferocity and quickly turning his head to look at John, with disbelief on his face. He looked at the princess as well, with an indescribable hatred, then turned to fight the other guard. John took the opportunity to do what he came here to do. The princess needed to be moved to safety. He approached her quickly but stopped midway. "You can't touch the princess." The words came back to his head. "Fucking protocols," he said inside his head, that were there for a reason he didn't understand, and that he was starting not to give a shit. "Princess, we need to get out of here. Run, run now," he commanded her. She reacted, breaking the spell that had made her stare at him, apparently without being able to stop, and started to run as fast as she could, followed closely by John, but a scream made him look back. The guard, who was left trying to stop the reptilian, hanged limp from its mouth, dark thick blood running down its jaws and settling on the polished dark granite-like floor below. The reptilian was breathing deeply, not because it was tired. That thing looks like it can go at it for days. No, it was pissed, so it did the only thing that made sense to it. It focused on the princess and threw the blade at her with tremendous raw force and speed. That thing traveled through the air with deadly accuracy and a precision that can only be attributed to years of practice. John saw this, knowing what was going to happen as if telegraphed to his brain, that the blade would find its target, so he did the only thing he could do, thinking loud enough inside his head that perhaps some of the people present may have heard him, "Fuck the rules," and swiftly, with a speed that looked unreal, placed himself between the blade's trajectory and the princess, who had stopped as well when she heard the bone-chilling scream of the guard dying inside that monster's jaws, and was facing the blade as it was heading her way, aimed at her heart. John, provoking the same level of multilingual gasps as before, did something that would have repercussions for millennia. He touched an Etherian princess. He grabbed her by her waist with his right arm, pulling her away from the blade's trajectory and placing the princess completely behind him as he placed himself, with a movement that seemed choreographed to say the least. On its way instead, the blade found a target, but not its intended one. The thing drove through his chest with unrelenting force, making him let out a short but tense grunt of what was obviously pain. The princess could see the entire blade coming out of John's back. It went into his body hilt deep, crimson red blood tainting his shirt, almost the same color of her skin. Her hands immediately went to cover her mouth, while John fell down on his knees, his head down, holding the blade inside him with one hand to prevent its vibrating system from digging in all the way through, and the reptilian curved what may have been his lips, showing 2 rows of razor-sharp teeth in what may have been a victory smile. Half a second later, the thing was on the move again, making short work of the distance between him and the princess, and when it was close enough, confident his job would be completed, and he would taste the princess' blood, John stood up like pushed up by gravity itself and intercepted the attacker, stopping, dead on its tracks, a 350-pound mass of angry, green-skinned natural-born killer. The impact was hard, making John slide back a little, but still holding the murderous mountain. All of this happened in one single motion. John, while standing up, had pulled the blade out of his chest with such speed that nobody noticed the action, just the fact that he had driven it all the way through the reptilian's lower jaw, coming out on the top of his head. John pulled in the impaled creature closer to his face and stared at it with perfect green eyes reflecting not only the purest form of rage anyone has ever seen on Ithar Prime, but also something else. Determination, commitment. She will not be harmed, not by this thing, not by anyone, not if he had something to say or do about it. Die, he said to the thing, his eyes inches away from the creature's face, making sure it was looking at him. Then he moved his left arm to grab the thing's face on the top side of its jaw and pulled his head down with raw power, the blade screaming as it went even deeper, and as the thing slowly, and held in place by John's grip, with a strength and determination not real by any human standards, the reptilian body went limp. And only when John was sure it was dead did he let it fall to the floor, the sound of flesh and bone hitting it hard. He then kicked it so hard the thing slid on the floor at least 8 feet away from them. A scream released the moment his right foot found the thing's belly. A trail of a very clear green fluid traced the body's trajectory as it continued to bleed out. John's face, tinted with it, looking predatory, he scanned his surroundings, assessing if there are any more threats. Gazing for half a second at the princess, pure instincts and training taking over, and only when he was sure it was over did he move towards her. John tore one of his sleeves and tried to make a makeshift bandage to simulate covering his wounded shoulder, but deep inside of him, he just hoped people paid more attention to the dead thing over there than to him, or they will definitely see something they're not supposed to see. And as he did this, the pain was real. Alien weapons are different. They would heal, but they have different effects. This one was a vibration blade that also produced scorching heat, and fire was also one of the things he needed to be aware of, like plasma shots and things that explode. So yes, the danger was real, but he could take it. He immediately ran towards the princess, ignoring the burning sensation and understanding it will be healed in a few hours, as it always happens, and focusing on lifting her up. She was all that mattered. He extended his hand to her. She looked up at him, tears falling down her eyes, and she took it. Again, interspecies gasps took over the place. What the hell was going on? It doesn't matter. Not now, he thought to himself. He may have harmed her if he pushed her away too hard. He pulled her up gently, making sure she could be stable on her own 2 feet. Princess, are you okay? Are you hurt? Did I hurt you? She looked at him in shock, disarmed by his concern of him having hurt her when it was him who just took a blade to the chest for her and saved her life, her body trembling as what seemed to be a mixture of fear, shock, and an electric charge was cruising through her body. But there was one other thing lingering in everyone else's minds but John's, including the princess's. He touched her, twice. The princess found her balance, as her gray eyes that seem as if they held galaxies in them were fixed on him, and he would have fought 10 more of these things if he could figure out what these beautiful eyes were saying to him, or to avenge her if anyone ever dares to provoke said eyes to let out the crystal tears falling down her red cheeks again, one hand covering her mouth. He could feel her trembling when he touched her. She stood up straight with her soul-tearing gaze locked on him. Was she aware of the effect she can have at people standing so close to her? Yes, I am fine, and no, you didn't hurt me, she finally answered. But her face was telling him he probably did something that could be worse than a bruise for excessive strength applied while pushing her away from certain death, her hand still holding to his arm, the arm that was giving her balance, the arm that helped her up, as if she was not able to let it go. And this will be a sensation that linger with her even after they was no longer making contact with each other. Two of the guards started to walk on a threatening manner towards John. He felt them the moment they started to walk towards him, and by the time both drew their blades, he was already in combat mode. Again, Princess Ilarya, looking at how he slowly turned his head to look at the guards, moved away, instinctively seeking protection behind him, as if knowing that was the safest place she could be in. But the guards were not trying to harm her. They were going to attack John, the Outworlder, who dared to touch their princess. The first swing came from the right, the guard's sword making that whistling sound swords made as the cut through the air. It would have chopped off his head clean off had it found its target, but John's speed made no sense. He moved away, docking it, and letting it go over his head, jumping up the moment it cleared his head, and landed a knee with his left leg to the midsection of the guard's armor. While with both of his hands, he pushed the guard down to maximize the damage. The armor cracked under the impact with what appeared to be an impossible strength from a human. As wind and blood came out of the guard's mouth, he fell flat on his face, struggling to catch his breath, but alive. The other guard came from the left. John caught the arm that held the sword with just one hand, and with a swift movement, he broke the guard's arm in at least 2 places, letting him go once he knew he was out of commission. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he screamed at them. "Can't you see I am on your side?" He was confused but alert. He looked at the princess, aware she was there, behind him. Yes, she didn't move. 5 more guards started their approach. John whispered, "Fine, let's see what you got," he said as he started to crouch just a bit, his muscles tensing, gathering up energy to be released in what would have been an explosion of controlled chaos. The attendants, aware of this, started to make way, removing themselves from behind the guards that approached this strange outworlder, just to make sure they didn't get caught in whatever it was about to happen. But everything and everyone stopped the moment they heard a voice. The guards bowed in less than half a second. It was the queen. Her command sounded both like thunder and music at the same time. They all froze. John turned to face her. She was already just about 2 feet away from him. He kneeled in respect, his head bowed down. "As you wish, Your Highness." She looked at him. Her expression was complex, a mixture of gratitude, fear, uncertainty, and something else that cannot be described. Royalty. Maybe true, unadulterated, pure royalty. Respect was owed. "Everybody, clear the room now," said the king, in a sharp command that no one dared to question. They moved quickly, as if their lives depended on it. "And take the 2 guards to the medical wing, and take this thing to be searched. I want to learn everything there is to learn about it. Fast," referring to the would-be dead assassin. John remained on his current position. In his mind, he wanted to make sure they understood that he was under their command, fully, that they are not in danger from him. Seconds later, only the king, the queen, the princess, and John were left in the immense room, alone. John was still kneeling, waiting. "Commander Forrester," the king said, "welcome to Athar Prime. Your reputation precedes you," the king said, and John couldn't make if the king was really mad or was just evaluating the situation. After all, he was sure that counting the amount of interplanetary rules he broke in just a few minutes would require entire training programs on what not to do, and how to screw up at least 100 years of negotiations with a species that had no need to sign treaties with a planet like Earth. He was cursing himself inside his head. "Please, stand up, Commander," the queen asked, with that melodic voice that he was starting to love in them, and when he did, he saw her still holding her daughter in her arms. It was a tight embrace that to him meant a little more than only protection. The princess was still crying out of shock and fear. "Are you familiar with our costumes and traditions, Commander?" the queen asked, her voice so melodic and soft that John's anger had no choice but to dissipate. He was disarmed. Etherians are great ambassadors. Because of this effect almost every species has when they speak. "Only what was on my data pad, Your Highness," John responded, standing, both hands on his sides, straight and not making eye contact with them. Pure military discipline, respect, and a little bit of shame, too. "We believe you may have missed something, Commander," said the king, now close enough to him to be able to touch him. "No," he responded, understanding where this was going. "Your Highness, I made a decision. It was either that or the princess's life. I chose her life," he said, factual, simple. "You broke a rule, a tradition that has been held for thousands of years, Commander," the queen replied. John kept quiet. He understood the political implications, the diplomatic intergalactic shitstorm that was forming around him, but also understood that it wouldn't be possible to speak if he was bound by this stupid, don't speak unless spoken to bullshit, so he acted. "May I speak freely, Your Highnesses?" he asked, to both of them. The princess, on the other hand, could not stop looking at him. He felt her eyes burning him alive. They looked at each other, apparently amused by this attitude, and one can imagine that in the presence of the rulers of 20 galaxies, they were not used to people being bold with them, so they allowed a faint smile. This was unorthodox, but they allowed it with a gesture. "Yes, you may, Commander," the king responded. John lifted his head to look at them. "Thank you, you highnesses." He tried choosing his words carefully, but he chose honesty instead. "With all due respect, I was tasked to protect the life of Princess Ilarya, not your traditions or your laws, because with assassins willing to risk total annihilation by threatening you, your empire, and above all, your daughter, the princess, these laws and traditions are a luxury that I cannot even consider, that I will not consider, and if I have to burn down your entire planet or any other planet to keep her safe, if that is what it takes to achieve it, that is what I will do." John made a pause, then continued. "Now, I know I did something wrong. I just humbly ask of you to please not hold Earth accountable for it. It is my fault. It was my decision and my responsibility, and I will pay whatever price I have to pay to mend my offense to your kingdom, to you, to the Queen, to your people and your daughter, whom I may have offended the most. But please know, I am not pleading for my life. It is not intended. But if I have to do it again, I would without even thinking about it." John said he knew the price that would be asked. "John." The princess said his name, and how did she know his name? Maybe the king told her? And why did his heart did that same weird thing it did before just now? His name sounded different coming from her. "What type of oath did they make you take?" she asked. "Princess, I took the oath of the soldier, to defend our planet, but said oath has nothing to do with this," he started to say. "I was sent here to look after you, to keep you safe, and that is exactly what I set out to do. Earth has nothing to offer to your great empire, less a few things you may find interesting and worth your time, not commercially, even though your people enjoy certain Earth things, but you don't really need them, not militarily, because you could brush us off the table as breadcrumbs, so the only thing we have is our word and our promise that even if we never become your greatest allies, we will sure as hell will be the most loyal in our commitments to your race. You have never abused us. You have always been fair to us. You have never forced us to participate in any war campaign your empire is forced to engage in. You have even declined our participation, and yet you share technologies with us, help us in every way possible, and our world is a far better place because of you. So, to answer your question, Princess, the oath I took is to give you the only thing I can give, loyalty, complete and unquestioned, at any price you require for me to pay, and be assured I am doing this freely and at peace with myself." He was looking into her eyes while he spoke, and he could see a flash of admiration flowing to her face. "And that, Commander, is why this incident is so sad. We are aware of what Earth promises to us, something we never thought we would dare to claim. And this will be the first time since our alliance that we will have to claim it," the Queen said. John went back to his previous position, head bowed, standing straight, hands to his sides. I understand, Your Highness. Surely you know the price is your life, said the king. Yes, Your Highness. I know. And are you really willing to make things right by giving it freely? The queen added, her voice in disbelief. She knew for a fact that if they were to request this to anyone else who was in court just moments before, they would be pleading for their lives, but not him. John kneeled again, both hands resting on the black marble floor. Yes, gladly, he said. At least I know she is still alive, he said, his head bent waiting. Even though John was perfectly aware of what this represented, Earth falling out of the protection from the Galactic Empire Alliance, understanding that millions would lose their lives because of him, and understanding this was an easy choice to make, and the honorable one just because of that. Oddly enough, he was not doing it for treaties and things like that, no, this was deeper. He felt it inside of him. He was ultimately doing it for her, and even though he knew she will be safer with him, by her side, he could also see the monumental conflict this was bound to create and how it could end up threatening her even more, having to deal with ruthless politics and ruthless assassins, a two-fronts fight. So, for him, it was an easy decision to make. She is all that matters, he repeated inside his head, not even understanding why he felt that way about this beautiful, bewitching alien woman he just met and who apparently had no idea that as of that moment, his life was hers. The king looked solemn, surprised. Him and the queen exchanged looks once more. It was strange. They didn't want to have to do this. It felt cruel for both of them, but they needed to confirm this was the right path to take. Many things are in motion now. They needed to make sure this strange human, as they saw him, even stranger than the already strange humans they knew, was in fact the one. The king sent a command through some device he had on his right gauntlet, and immediately one of the guards who was close to the door outside entered, walking towards them immediately, his sword drawn, and stood in position, while lifting the sword. Mom, Dad, don't, he saved me, she screamed, with disbelief on her face, terror even, trying to stop this from happening, but her pleas for mercy were ignored. I want to choose him. Stop, please. I felt it. Is there, when we touched, I felt how he saw me when I came in, how he felt when he thought I could be harmed. I felt it. I don't want to lose it, please, she screamed. The king and the queen exchanged looks, and John, still in the same position, was not able to comprehend what she meant, and felt regret over the fact he will never find out. This is a good death, he said to himself, accepting his fate. And the princess, in a desperate move, moved in between the guard and John, forcing the guard to quickly step back, avoiding any contact with her as if she was radioactive or something. This is cruel. This is not you. Her voice was killing him inside, but John understood that this had to run its course. It needed to happen. Princess Ilarya, John said to her, almost as a whisper, and turning his head just enough to catch a glimpse of her face, that made him feel at peace with himself. She is all that matters. Again, the same words repeating inside his head, and she is alive. He continued to speak to her. Please, you need to move away from the guard and that sword. If he tries to obey an order from the king, and order is bound by honor to obey, and in doing so he puts your life at risk, I will be forced to hurt him too, and I know you don't want that. He took a pause. Thank you for caring, but please step aside, he said. You could walk away from this if you wanted to, and we would not be able to stop you, is that right? The king asked. John, a new understanding and a question answered, bringing relief to his mind. It was obvious on his face. That doesn't matter now, Your Highness, John said, respect on his voice, but they could also feel defeat being carried by it, too. Please indulge me, Commander. The king pressed. John curved his lips in what was a smile, confirming to the king that what he said was a fact. Your soldiers would get me eventually. I am hard to get rid of, but not all-powerful, Your Highness. So yes, I could step away from this catastrophe at any time. I am just making another choice again, the right choice. He responded. The guard showed disbelief in his claims, but was not going to test him. The king and the queen exchanged looks, and the queen quickly stepped in and held her daughter tight to her body, more like in a protecting matter this time, a "trust in us, my child" way, than holding her to prevent her from intervening. The guard swung the sword with deadly precision but stopped only inches away. The king stopped the execution. John, however, didn't move. "Stand up, Commander. Like I said, your reputation precedes you." John was confused. John obeyed, and when he did, he could see relief painted on the princess's face, eyes locked with his, but still, John couldn't really understand why she seemed to be relieved, why she cared, other than maybe she was just as good and pure as her parents, maybe. The queen continued to hold her daughter, a slight smile over her face as she started to walk away with her. "Come, my love, let the men speak. There is much to be said." And when she passed by John, she touched his left shoulder with her bare hand and whispered, "Thank you, Commander, for saving my daughter's life. I will never forget this," and continued to walk towards the royal entrance. The princess had her head leaning against her mother, and John heard her when she whispered the words, "Thank you," to her mother, and turned just before they left the room to look at John, with a faint but perfect smile on her beautiful face. They left the room, and John was left thinking how powerful the queen felt. I mean, the king demands respect, obedience, no arguments there, but the queen, her gaze, her smile. Wow, it was kind of scary. "Guard, leave us." The guard had a look of confusion on his face, but obeyed and stepped away, leaving John and the king alone. John took a quick glance at the device on his wrist. It was flashing like crazy, but he was not going to pay attention to it right now, the king also noticed. Once alone, the king went back and sat on his throne. He looked relieved for one, but also burdened at the same time. He glanced at the blinking thing in his arm and said, "I believe we also owe you an explanation." The king said, gratitude painted on his face, "That looks important, Commander. Maybe you should answer," he said, pointing at the device on John's wrist and smiling. "It's command, Your Highness. They are probably calling to notify me of my immediate execution the moment over 100 years' worth of negotiations and treaties get flushed down the drain. And, of course, after you execute me first, Your Highness," he managed to say, and to his surprise, the king laughed and gestured him to answer it. "We need to talk, Commander, but that is distracting. Please answer it," he said. John did, and the moment he answered, a known voice came through. "Commander, what in the actual fuck did you do? I have received at least 1,000 messages from at least 50 different planets, and in languages I didn't even know existed, trying to explain to me something related to assassins. You beating up royal guards, the king's guards, for crying out loud, and worst of all, touching the princess, which is expressly forbidden for one good reason. Do you even realize the monumental size of the problem you have created? I have about 100 diplomats from at least 10 of our colonies asking for permission to meet with His Royal Highness to try and mend things. Well, what the hell is going on? Speak to me, Commander Forrester." Admiral Thorne was a good man. John respected him and trusted him with his life, so he understood his frustration. He was like a father figure to John. He looked at the king, who was covering a smile with his hand, making John's confusion even greater. "Your Highness, maybe you can call your guard back. I think it will be easier, cleaner." He resigned himself to this. The king laughed again. "And, Commander, I assume this is also happening because you allow it to happen." The king meant John getting reprimanded when he just saw him defeat, single-handedly, a beast that would require at least 5 of his best guards to even slow down. "I am going to assume your commander knows this to be true as well." And the king was right. Everything John did was by choice. "I respect him, Your Highness, but yes," John replied, honest. "Humans are interesting creatures. Can you share this so that he can see me?" the king asked, and John thought for a moment that the guard with the sword was looking like the best option with each passing moment. "Yes, Your Highness," he replied. He pushed a few codes into his wrist communication device, and a hologram projected between him and the king. "Admiral Thorne, I am patching you through, King Aaron. Supreme ruler of Athar Prime wants to speak to you, he said. Wait, what? The admiral replied, but quickly changed demeanor when he saw the king's face. Your Highness, it is an honor to meet you. I am Admiral Thorne, he said, respectful but breaking protocol. 2. He is supposed to let the king acknowledge him first. The king smiled in reply. And John was already playing with the idea of not letting this one go if he manages to make it back alive to Earth after this disaster. Greetings, Admiral Thorne. I will be quick, and I have never seen Admiral Thorne be so quiet in his life, not even in front of the president. First, the Queen and I want to thank you for sending us Commander Forrester, and we want to thank you personally for suggesting him as my daughter's protector. The Queen and I, and the Empire as a whole, owe you a debt of gratitude. Commander Forrester seems to be, so far, everything your communication described when we requested for this support for my daughter, Princess Ilaria's protective detail. In just hours after his arrival, your commander managed to stop an assassination attempt to my daughter, in front of the entire court, with hundreds of witnesses. He managed to kill the would-be assassin with a precision that only speaks of the discipline he must have learned under Earth training protocols. His performance so far goes above and beyond our expectations. Please disregard all the gossips related to what transpired in my palace today. And as I listened to the king speak, I could not help but to feel relieved that Earth would be okay. But also, I was having fun with Admiral Thorne's face as the king praised him, and could see he was overdoing it. 2. The king, for all intents and purposes, was a normal person. A king, yes, powerful and dangerous if he wanted to be, but a good person, he continued. I will be sending a formal and official royal communication to your high command and a personal copy to you, directly in a few minutes, fully expressing what I have said to you on this call. Also, I am granting you personally and to your family full access to Athar Prime and a private audience with the Queen and I, should your busy schedule allow you to honor us with a visit. We want to be able to thank you personally for what you did for the Empire today. You have no idea how grateful we are for the commander. Also, please feel free to express these words to your higher-ups. Feel free to share these communication with anyone whom you deem necessary. And Admiral, I am formally requesting that your commander be transferred to Athar Prime for an indefinite period of time. The Queen and I will find this gesture, should your government approve it, as a personal favor to the Empire and the Crown. From our friends and allies from Earth, I will let you speak to your commander now. But please be brief, I need him. And he sat back. The king typed a few things in the arm of his throne, and received confirmation that the message will be sent to all higher command on Earth within minutes. He then sat back and waited for John. Sir, John said. Admiral Thorne's face was worth millions right now, and he had to fight the urge to grin at him. John, do you think he heard the F-bomb? And that almost made him laugh.
Sir.
Yes, he did, but I don't think he minds. The king understand it is Earth military talk. Sir, I have to go, he said. Yes, don't keep the king waiting because of me. We will speak later, he said, and hung up. It is me who owes you a debt of gratitude now, Your Highness, 1, for not killing me, 2, for solving that problem for me, John said, wanting to sit down not because he needs to be sitting, but because it seemed like the right thing to do in this situation. Please come closer, Commander, he smiled. John complied. This was a test, John asserted, somehow feeling that he was now allowed to speak to the king without asking for permission, and while using his logical brain to analyze what in all lights should have been a multicultural, intergalactic, and diplomatic nuclear storm in the making. But why? You were recommended by your Earth Command. I let them know what my needs were, and your name was the only one that came back. Of course you can understand that I needed to know how much would you be able to sacrifice to protect my daughter, not because I doubt your skills as a soldier, but because your world is fairly new into the Alliance, and there are many unknowns on the human world, but most importantly, the Queen and I needed to understand. And while the king was in the middle of that sentence, the Queen and the princess came back again. I tensed the moment I caught her scent as she approached the door, and saw her walking in with the corner of my eyes, and immediately thought to myself that I needed to stop doing that. I can switch to protection mode without looking like a freaking android." She insisted. The queen said. "Are you sure, my love?" said the king, worry replacing the projection of strength he had on his face. "Yes, father, I want to be here. I want to be close to him," she replied, as John tried to pretend he was not looking at her. But he was. Her beautiful red skin, her white hair and gray eyes, and her voice, the melody it carried and her accent as she spoke in his language. It made him think that it was invented to be spoken with her voice, her scent, captivating, demanding but also soft, a perfume taking over the entire place, not artificial. This was her, it was her essence, so strong that he had to mentally scream at the thing in him to step back. "Thank you, father, for not killing him," she continued to speak, and these words made him bow his head. Why was she feeling the need to defend him? "It was never my intention, my daughter," he responded, holding her hand as she passed by him, sitting down in the chair designated for her. One step down to the right of her father, the seat belonging to the heir to their empire, the queen, taking her place to the left of her husband. And once John could regain control over his own freaking senses, he was thinking about what the king was saying to him, as the king continued. "In short, now we know how much would you be willing to sacrifice to protect my daughter and our kingdom. Now we understand both." John nodded. "You could have asked," John said flatly. "We both know that is not enough." And he smiled. "You are healed," the princess noticed. John nodded. "Not completely, princess," John responded. "But how is that even possible? I saw the blade run through you," she continued, and the king jumped in, and he feared there were questions coming his way that he shouldn't discuss. Well, that he was not allowed to discuss, not even with them, but that given the circumstances, he will have to divulge. After all, today seems to be the day of breaking shit, from green monsters, millenary laws, and intergalactic rules, so what the hell? "Your commanding officer said you are unique," the king said. "That, your highness, is the nicest way to put it I have heard in many years," John responded. "Your commander tried to explain it to me, but I didn't quite understand the concept. In fact, I believe he might have been holding off on us, but I wonder if you would indulge an old king, his wife, and our daughter, and educate us about what you are?" "Your highness," John thought about it. "I am not human." He evaluated his situation and decided he needed to come clean. After all, they started to trust him. The queen held her husband's hand. "I think we saw that, commander. It was obvious the moment you acted to protect our daughter." "Meaning, we need more." "That is obvious. I've been around for 150 years, and I see a young human male in front of me who can destroy a full-grown reptilian warrior, take a vibration blade attack through the chest, and then finish the reptilian off by using that same blade. After he pulled that blade out of his own chest, add to that, heal in minutes with almost no bleeding, crack imperial armor with just his body, break the arm of a trained royal guard with such ease that made me question the training my guards have, and after all of the above, and finally, accept his death without a fight, when we all know you could have taken our lives easy and just fought your way out of here, since even if you say the contrary, I believe we may not have been able to stop you," he said and smiled. "What did I miss?" "Nothing, your highness. I guess you just missed the things you don't know yet," John replied. "And what is that?" the princess asked him, leaning forward in her beautiful throne chair, her white formal gown teasing the universe with the curves that hid behind its delicate fabric. "Well, princess," I started to say, "I can hear the guards outside are nervous about me being here alone with you, and that the personal escort that brought you and the queen here are still close to the door trying to listen to what we are saying. I can hear people walking on the top floor, the floor below us, and another room about 100 feet to my right. I can hear your heartbeat. It is like a song to me. I've memorized its rhythmic sound now, and I am sure I could find you with my eyes closed anywhere, regardless of how many people surround you. Just by listening to that sound alone, I can smell the blood flowing under your veins. Each of your senses is different. The king's, I can sense power, a long bloodline full of knowledge. The queen's, I can compare it to calm determination, but I can also see a storm that can form if pushed the wrong way. It is, in a sense, scary and beautiful at the same time. And the princess, you have a strong mix of both of your parents, the combination of the king's power and the queen's calmness. But there is something else, something yours that makes it unique, almost like flowers and starlight, sweet, feels like home and warmth, he said, and he was already open to them. And while he described this, his eyes started to change colors until they turned to a tone of yellow and red that overpowered male Etherian eye color. The princess had her hands covering her mouth. The queen leaned a little forward, and the king leaned back, pensive. Your eyes, the princess said, from between her hands, hiding a smile, maybe? Back on Earth. This was the part where people decided to run. Not human, he said. This is remarkable, the queen added, amazed. Now I can understand how you did what you did, but there is more, John just nodded. The princess stood up and, to my surprise, they didn't try to stop her. She came closer to me, while I turned to face her. I want to see them closer, she said, not afraid. Then again, these are different times, and weird is normal when you deal with hundreds of different species, some with more limbs than what should be allowed to have. She came in close and leaned in closer to my face, her breath warm against my skin, a half-smile drawn that threatened to steal my life force away. Amazing, she said, just inches away from me, then stepped back and sat down again, while I just wanted for her scent to linger there longer. My eyes went back to normal. And you can do that on command? The queen asked. Does it serve a purpose? Good question, actually. Yes, your highness. Those are my true eyes. My sight is way better in that state. I can see in the dark clearly as if it was daylight. These are the camouflage. You see, we are considered a predatory species on Earth, and there was a time where we were hunted by the humans. In all fairness, my kind, or the closest thing there is to be my kind, was not good. Our nature's untamed and unpredictable. Things have changed now. There aren't many of us around, and the ones left keep to themselves, and blend in, not wanting to be noticed, he explained, and they understood, or at least he thought they did. There is so much I want to ask you, the queen said, and I hope we can have those conversations in the future, she finished saying, genuine interest to her voice, but there are other issues that needed to be dealt with. Now, son, the king turned serious. I am trusting my daughter's life to you. I will break our traditions for you, because touching the princess is a right only granted to her chosen partner, and all I ask in return is for you to trust me. For that, and more that will be revealed to you today, we need to know you completely, he said, and John could feel the weight of what they were implying, the weight of what this would bring to him. And he accepted it. When that thing, the queen started to say, that storm I see in her forming and abating very quickly, tried to kill my daughter for the third time, she instinctively moved to be behind you. This, John, in our world, in our race between Etherians, is not coincidence, is not just a reaction. She recognized in you with certainty that she could trust you with her life, and that close to you was, and is, the safest place to be. And as the queen spoke these words, the princess just kept looking at him, as if she was waiting for something. Then the queen continued, I see you have questions, but they will have to wait. Commander, I am, however, answering what I perceive as one of them. In our culture, it is the mother's duty to guide and talk about these things, these connections. It is my duty and my honor to explain this to you, because for all intents and purposes, John, my daughter has chosen you. John felt something inside of him. It was comparable to warmth. She has chosen him. And he knew by now that the queen was not talking about chosen security. No, this was deeper and more personal. I am an open book, just ask, he said. First, do you want to sit? The queen asked. I prefer to stand, if that's okay with you, your highness, she smiled. Very well, John smiled. Well, the king pressed. John's eyes shifted to look at the princess. She was waiting to see his reaction at the revelation, and it seemed she liked whatever it was that showed up on his face, because she looked at her mother and smiled her most beautiful smile yet. He forced himself to focus, to think about it. He was trained to guard the secret he was about to reveal, not only by the military but by the laws that ruled his kind. But again, under the circumstances, Earth Command will have to agree with this. I am, Your Highnesses, what on earth is called a vampire? I am not alive, nor am I dead. I exist in between that threshold, sire. The princess' face turned serious. It makes no sense. I see you. You are there, moving, talking to us. When we touched, I felt warmth in your body. I felt you, she said, confused, and it felt painful to think this was a deception for her, but I pushed the feelings back to where they belonged. That princess is also part of the camouflage. There is no heartbeat in my chest. I don't need to breathe. I only go through the motions as muscle memory to complete the illusion and, of course, to use my sense of smell. My heart's only real function is to pump blood over my body when I need strength for fighting or something like that. And I am what may be called immortal. I will not die under natural causes, ever. I can be killed. It is not easy to do, but it can happen, for example, on these age and times. Weapons are more sophisticated, plasma burns, and if my blood is burned it cannot regenerate my body, for the source of what I am is within the blood that runs through my veins. Is that the reason why that wound on your chest is taking longer to heal? The king asked, grateful for the information and the openness about his weaknesses. Yes, your majesty. Also, anything that would drain the blood out of my body would be lethal. For example, having my head cut off would have done the trick. That is a universal rule. The body cannot live without the mind. Other than that, I can't be killed. And as he explained to them what he is, he tried to glance at the princess' face while trying not to make it too obvious. And he couldn't tell if she was disgusted by him or just in disbelief. And yet, knowing that decapitation would destroy you, you offered us the chance to do so. Interesting. John could see an understanding on the king's face. The king knows he can trust this creature in front of him. Then he continued, I've never heard about vampires before, said the king, leaning back on his chair. Because we don't exist, allegedly, and my command wants to keep this fact hidden, John revealed, now breaking about 40 secrecy agreements. Earth is a rare place, the queen said. We have to plan a visit, my love. The king held her hand tenderly. Please don't take this the wrong way. Earth is the new child in the galaxy in the middle of, well, you, and they thought it would make sense to keep some secrets from a security standpoint, John added. And they will never know you told us, Commander. You have my word, the king said. I fully understand why they hid this from us. It is not our place to meddle into Earth worries about their own security. I just hope, in time, they trust us just like you are trusting us today. John hoped so, too. Would you show me? The princess asked. She wanted to see the damage the blade did to his body. He knew. She didn't even have to explain what she wanted. She asked with her eyes fixed on John. Ilarya. The queen called her name, but she was hiding a smile. I really want to see it. John could deal with soldiers wanting to kill him, plasma shots that took hours to heal, and yes, green monsters with a thirst for royal blood. But this was hard for him. John looked at the king, as if looking for approval or probably support to the contrary. Like the queen said, Commander, these matters are handled by the mother. He didn't object. And when John made the decision to show her, she was already halfway there. Her stride was elegant, almost as if she was gliding over the floor. John started unbuttoning his shirt as she paid attention as if this was something very important, and the wound, halfway healed, showed. It was a deep red mark on his chest, almost the same color of her skin, about 4 inches thick. It looked tender. She got closer to him, unnecessarily close to see the damage caused by the assassin's blade, because that is not what she wanted to do. She extended her hand slowly, 2 fingers out as her hand got closer to his chest. He was as if in a trance with her scent, her eyes, her face, her mouth, so close to him. Princess he protested, but she stopped him mid-sentence. Ilarya, she said, as if telling him to use her name, and relax. I am not going to touch you, yet. although I do hope we get the chance to experience it other than in a life-or-death situation," she said, while she stopped so close that he could feel her warmth on his skin, and started to fake trace the wound all the way down to where it ended. "This is more intense than what it should be for what it is," he managed to say, and she laughed, soft, and almost just for him. "Only because you are making it so, Commander." "What happens now?" he finally had the courage to ask. "I want to claim you, but we have to wait for the process to continue. My mother will explain it." "Claim me?" he asked. "Yes, for myself. Do you want me to claim you?" "Yes, I do," he answered without thinking. "Good, I thought so," she said and went back to her sit, turning before getting there. "Does that answer the question you asked?" "Yes, it does." "Good," she said again. The queen held her daughter's hand before she sat down, and a smile drew on her face. There was something else about skin contact with them. The king allowed this to happen as this was all part of the process. We continued with the discovery, the princess as in fact exploring John, and how comfortable she felt with him. "And how many like you are there?" the king continued, interested in more than one way. John could tell. "I am the only one like me, but there are others. We are somewhat the same, but I am different than the rest." "How so?" the king asked. "I am, well, altered," John said, not wanting to reveal that part of his life, a part he didn't particularly liked. "And if your highness allows it, I would like to keep my origins a secret. Suffice to say that I am, for all intents and purposes, something that shouldn't have happened. I cannot be replicated, your highness. I don't know how to say it. Happened." John knew the king had some levels of concern about an army of things like him, but he could rest assured it was not possible. They tried and never could do it. He looked at the princess while he said this, and her face showed sympathy. She looked as if she wanted to fix the way he felt about this part of his past. "I am revealing too much, your highness. I hope I don't regret doing so," John said. It was only fair, and the king appreciated the bluntness. "I grant you that wish, and I can also say you will not regret this. You have my word." John thanked him for that. "I want to know, too, how are you different than the others like you?" the princess asked, somehow, knowing that her asking him would most definitely break any barriers he may be trying to keep up, testing the boundaries she was allowed to bridge, to explore, and in his mind, she had none. If she wanted to learn something about him, all she needed to do was ask. "I am the only one who can walk in the sunlight. My kind dies when exposed to the sun, but not me. I was made this way, something I want to forget but can't," he revealed, and the king didn't press him on it as promised, and for that he was grateful, though he was also sure if it was the princess alone asking him, he would tell her everything. "No wonder your command said they were sending me their secret weapon." John just nodded. "What else can you do?" the princess kept asking. She was more focused on him, while her father was more focused on what he is. Wish, when you think about it, is different, but none of them meant it in a bad way. The queen, on the other hand, was just looking at her daughter's reactions and whatever interaction she had with him. All part of the process. "On Earth, I can read people's minds, but for some reason that intrigues me. I can't read anyone's minds here, nor the minds of any other species other than a human's. Maybe it is because we are built for Earth, to be a predator of Earth. Even though I can function in any world I visit," he mused, but opened up for an uncomfortable question. "Nourishment," the princess said. "What do you like to eat?" she asked, her gray eyes deep, captivating. "Princess, you realize you just asked Earth's apex predator and maybe a few more planets here or there. What are its dietary needs?" John responded, trying to make the conversation fun, more casual, and it worked. The princess and her parents were expecting his answer with interest. "I guess I am," she replied. "I can eat normal human food, but I need to consume blood to keep my strength. It can be animal blood, but a human's blood is the type of nourishment that will suit us best, the only kind we crave," he said, simple, let it sink. "My race seems to have been created to replace humans at some point, for that is the only blood we crave." but something happened along the way, and humans remain while my kind is just there. The princess stood up again and started to walk towards him, moving until she was just as close as before. If I wanted to feel your heart, would you let me? I already broke that law out of necessity. I don't want to break it out of curiosity, princess, John responded, but she started to extend her hand so close to his chest that he could feel the heat of her body. So, he stepped back, within human speed, leaving a good 10 feet of distance between them. For them it was as if he'd just materialized where he was standing now. John did this to try and take her mind of the contact part, though deep inside, he knew eventually they will have to touch each other again. By the gods, that was amazing, she said, and John was just glad she forgot about what she was trying to do. You are that fast, the king asked. Faster, your highness. If I need to be, however, I can't fly like my kind back on Earth, he responded, and the king allowed himself to lump back on his seat, many questions on his head, but he focused. That means you were holding back when you ran towards the princess earlier, the queen deducted. Fast enough to reach her in time, John responded, his confidence clear. They believed him after seeing and learning what he could do. But if I needed to expose myself to save her, I would have done so. There's just no need to do that. Yet, I am good at hiding what I am. I've been doing it for a while. The assassin, he never had a chance, did he? The king asked, with certain satisfaction with his words. No, your highness. That thing was dead the moment I saw it moving towards the princess. It just took a little longer to do it, and there was more drama than what I could have done in another scenario where secrecy wasn't a part of the problem, John responded as matter of fact. But remember, your highness, I am not indestructible, and a thing like that is fair chance to take me down under the right circumstances. John added, setting the record straight. He didn't want to oversell himself. You are perfect, the queen added, these words coming out of nowhere. You are most graceful to me, your highness, but I am far from it, John responded. I am surprised that Earth sent you instead of just a very efficient bodyguard. Earth, your highness, understood the urgency and importance of your request. I am the best solution we could offer, and like I explained, we want to be your friends, and we are willing to prove it, John clarified to her. She nodded in response. Do you have family, John Forrester? The queen asked, using my name and giving it a non-deserved recognition by pronouncing it with her beautiful voice. Wife, children, very direct. I've only asked because you may be staying with us for a while. We may not want you to go back to Earth if you so desire, of course. She made it clear it was his choice, and he knew the choice had already been made the moment the princess entered the ballroom. She is the only one that matters. He repeated the sentence in his head. No, your highness, no family, and as for children, he had never thought about it. And why not? She understood he meant no, and kept pressing, and John never thought he would feel threatened by a conversation, and started to think he felt more comfortable when that guard was about to chop his head off. I am normal, your highness, if you can call me that, almost in every single aspect that humans are, but there are some exceptions and something that I have never tested before, that I have never explored. John struggled with this, it was personal, and only now that he thought about it, it made him feel less than. I know what you are asking me, your highness, but I honestly don't know if I can have children. Vampirism destroys the capacity of the human body to procreate, leaving only the process, the act if you will. He was struggling to find the best and more decent way to say that yes, he can have sexual relations but had never tried to have children. He always thought he just couldn't, and the only way regular vampires, not like me, can multiply is by turning other humans into what we are. I am different though, but having children is not something I had thought about or tried. Yet I have been studied, tested on, analyzed, experimented on, then tested again, and besides the unhuman traits I have, the results come out the same. I am for all intent and purposes normal in every other aspect, John responded. Do you think that Earth Command might hold out on information from you for the same security reasons? She asked, and this was a clever question. Absolutely, John responded honestly. John found himself yearning for his mind-reading powers just to see what the princess was thinking. Thank you, John Forrester, for trusting us, complete strangers, with such a powerful secret, yet another positive mark in favor of your planet Earth. You have given us so much in such a short period of time that I believe I speak for the king and my daughter when I say we may never be able to repay you, the queen said, and John thought this meeting was over, but no. Do you have any questions for us, John? The king said. Yes, your high, he got interrupted. Please, son, enough with the formalities. You have well earned the right to void that, at least during meetings like this, which I suspect will be many. You can, if you wish to do so, address us by our names. Thank you, King Aaron. That was easier, though he was sure the king would have wanted to even leave that tittle out, but he accepted it. Please continue, said the queen. Are you not repulsed by what I am? He asked, and they were not expecting it. No, the princess exclaimed, too obvious that she was self-conscious. Why would you think that? The queen asked. Queen Yara, because what I am is not natural, he responded. Well, then you are our unnatural protector, the queen mused. There are many species in the galaxies, and they are all unique in their own way. I think I am lucky that out of all of these worlds and all of these different races, I got to meet the only one of you, the only one of your kind, John, said the princess, with a more serious tone on her voice, but just as soft and inviting. Now, John, we need to address the part where you touched our daughter. You need to understand why you had to put 2 of our guards in the medical ward for trying to defend her honor, and you need to understand the implications that it will bring upon you, the queen said, and looked at the princess, who was already approaching him again. Please, John, come closer to us, said Princess Ilarya, as she gestured him to move closer, and he did, as if he was not able to resist whatever command she gave him. The queen stood up, graciously, studying him, while the princess stood next to him, close, as that was the place she needed to be. Let us forget about costumes and traditions, John, because like I said, I will never forget you saved my daughter 3 times today. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Do you know how Etherian biology works? She asked him, while at the same time extending her hand to her daughter, who immediately ran and took it. How our skins work? What is it used for? She started. No, Queen Yara, I am sorry, but I don't know. The queen smiled at him. That's okay. We also keep some things hidden. To protect our people, our women, it is not common knowledge for anyone other than Etherians, and when we share books about our biology to other worlds, we keep those details hidden. It is not hard to do when you have control over galaxies, as you may understand, just like Earth hid you from us, and I don't blame you. See how we are stealing you the same day we found out about you, she said as John smiled in understanding. You say you can read minds on Earth. We believe you. Our skin works in a similar fashion. Me holding my daughter's hand is a way to speak to her, and only to her. She shares her feelings with me, and I share mine with her. When I held her before we left the room, I was telling her that this was a test, and you would not be harmed. Every time we brush against one another, we are talking, sharing thoughts, feelings, and so on. Do you understand? She asked John. Yes, Queen Yara, and I find it amazing. His eyes trailed towards Princess Ilarya, who was paying attention to his reaction. Skin contact is also the way we bond with our life mates, with our partners. We identify things we like about a prospect, and after time, once we have a base to think that person might be the right one, we proceed to some kind of skin contact to confirm. If it is not, then we move on. That is why, and I guess this you know about, my daughter has her unbonded bracelet, given to our women the moment they reach the age of what you call marriage, that tells our males that 1, she is of age of course, and 2, she is not to be touched, and slowly, everything was starting to make sense to him. And I touched her, he said. Yes, you did, twice I may add, and that is the reason why our guards tried to kill you, because that is the only way that a bond can be broken, she added. But after my daughter made contact with me, I realized that, against all odds, something that has never happened, John. She paused and the princess stepped forward. John, when you touched me, I felt you. I learned so much about you. I saw how you felt when you saw me in danger. I saw your heart, and that is okay. It is what usually happens. But there is something else, John deducted, and she smiled at him. Wide. Beautiful. Yes. She stepped closer, standing mere inches away from him, and very slowly started to move her hand forward. He didn't move this time. Understanding that this had to happen now, she opened her hand, her palm facing forward, and just half a second before she could make contact with his chest, over the injury caused by the blade, she closed her eyes and placed her palm over his chest. He felt her, this strange sensation mixed up with his own vampire senses, making the emotion stronger, more real, more palpable. John instinctively moved his hand and placed it on top of hers, his vampire eyes flaring with its predatory look. She then opened her eyes. John, I have bonded with you, and I feel I cannot live without you by my side. I want to claim you for me if you allow it, and if you want to claim me back, she said, and these words justified what he was feeling for her. He now understood why he was willing to die for this woman, and why he was ready to burn the entire system to protect her.